My name is David Lee Maynard Sr. I live at 1232 Westmoreland Drive. I was in the best branch of the service. I was in the Navy. I left Burlington one September morning to go to Raleigh, and was interested that the same people who were on the train with me for the most part were my classmates who were going to Shaw University in North Carolina, and North Carolina College in Durham. I was surprised when I left Burlington. I was just 18 years old, but they gave me all information to carry to Raleigh to give to the people in the service department that we were going to. When we got to the Raleigh and we were examined, you had a choice of what branch you could go into. They tried to get most people to go into the Coast Guard at first. But my shock was when after I finished my physical examination, they told me to go here and sit down. And everybody else had sent them in another direction. They were standing over in another area of the room. And I felt so bad because I said, now all those guys must have passed, and I didn't pass. I just felt so bad. So one of the people that were examining it must have detected it was something. It looked like there was something wrong with me. So they walked over and asked me, said, what's wrong? I said, I just feel so bad because it looked like to me I'm the only one that didn't pass. All those people standing over there passed. He said, well, you should be happy. You're the first person to pass. So that made me feel good. And we went on, and after we were in Raleigh for a few hours, and they shipped us from Raleigh to Camp Smalls in Chicago. That's where I took my basic training in the Navy, because I selected the Navy rather than the Coast Guard. They tried to get me to go in the Coast Guard, but I told them I would rather go into the Navy. So after finishing my training and while at Camp Small, of course, you had the opportunity to play on different kinds of teams, and I would select basketball. That was my favorite. And one of the things that lesson that I was taught, they had 10 or 12 courts that you report to when you're trying to make the team. Had a young guy, I don't know, he marched in the same platoon that I did when we were at Camp Small taking our training. And I don't know, but for some reason, it looked like to me I didn't like his attitude. So who in the world did they put me to play guard with but the same person? And while we were taking a shower during the time we were there one day, I said, and we became pretty close. I said, gosh, you know what? I said, when they put me out here to play guard with you, I was really disappointed. Because I said, it's just something about you, I don't know. It just looked like it rubbed me the wrong way. He said, Maynard, you know what? I felt the same way about you. I was sorry that they put me out here, and here we end up making a team and had to play guard together. But we came very close and had a wonderful relationship. When we left Camp Small, then we went out to a receiving center in Shoemaker, California. And we both played ball out there, and they selected the coach. I couldn't believe they selected me as the coach, because most of the players were taller, larger, and much they were older than I was. So we had a successful team at Shoemaker. But later on, they started sending us to different divisions. And I was hoping that I might be able to get to go to service school, but the man says, no, we're going to have to, everybody wouldn't have a chance to go. We have to send you somewhere now that where we need you. We're going to assign you to the Fleet Post Office, and you'll go and work in the post office. So at first I thought maybe, well, I'd be on a ship in a Fleet Post Office. But it just meant that we'd be assigned to that branch of the Navy and working with the Fleet Post Office, then they assign you to a post office on a base. And I went to the New Hebrides Island, on the largest islands in the New Hebrides group, and that's the Espiritu Santos was the largest island. And those other islands must have been mighty small, because every night when we go to bed, we say, listen, tomorrow morning, if we aren't careful, we're going to wake up out there in the ocean, because that bed was just rock, plenty nights. But it was a wonderful experience. There again, we had a basketball team, and Coach Goss and I were on the team, and we went on to get some more people on the team, and here again, who did they select to coach the team? Well, I selected to coach the team. We had I had a very interesting experience, because in working in the post office, you know, the people gave us an opportunity to one of the things that I experienced again while in the service, being selected as the coach of the team. And this came as a surprise, because some of those guys had played college ball, and certainly most of them, in fact, just about all of them, other than Goss, were taller than I was. But that was a very good experience for me, more than I realized at that particular time. But working in the Naval Post Office, people seem to trust you a great deal. I know when they got paid, I had more people to ask me to keep my money for me, Maynard. A few days I got to make up my mind what am I going to do to send it home, or what I'm going to do. And I always wondered, now, what in the world, as I thought back over this, I said, now, they don't know, they've just met me since I've been in the Navy, and I was happy that I impressed them that they could trust me with their money. They knew I could write money orders, but I couldn't carry that kind of money to the post office and write money order, but I could get someone in that division to write them and give them the name and address. But it made me feel very proud. I enjoyed being overseas, but I was glad when the officer told me that in the next 3 weeks I would be going back to the United States. And when I came back to the United States, I was stationed at the Fleet Post Office there in Oakland, California, but I lived on Pine Street in San Francisco. In working in the Fleet Post Office, I was responsible for training clerks to work in a Navy post office, and we had different groups to come in. It's been so many weeks. The armed forces had just started to integrate at this particular time. So I did experience something that enabled me to grow, and something that I would be confronted with later on in life. So we were getting out supper one night, and in the armed forces, you run out of silverware sometime. I put my tray down, and I came back after I picked up my silverware, and in a few minutes, a group of guys came who I had in class, in mail clerk class. So they said, let's move. So I had, I guess, about 15 in the class, and most of them were from Texas. So a little guy from California named Mark, he said, well, no, let's sit down here. Maynard, let's sit here. Let's sit at this table. So they said, no, let's move. So I said, Mark, listen, if they would like to move, that's all right. I can understand it. And it's not going to bother me. I'm not going to move. If they would like to move, they could get up and move. But I'm not moving. They decided to sit there. And so I had another little guy in that group, was from St. Louis, and afterwards he told me, he said, Maynard, you know, I felt funny when I went to the movie the other night, and here some black people came and sat in the same row that I was in. That's just a new experience for me. I told him, well, I could understand how it would be a new experience. But it was a wonderful experience for me because I hadn't had that experience. And then following that experience, I think these guys that were from Texas were some of the best students that I had when during the classes that I taught. I enjoyed working in the Naval Post Office, and I enjoyed the experience, but I felt like I wanted to go on and complete my college, earn my college degree, and I didn't want to stay in the service. They had tried to get me to stay in there. They were going to put me to Port Chicago in California, and they said that down there you'll be able to get your Lieutenant JG grade. It wouldn't take you long to get it there. But I said, no, I want to go home. So I went home, and that was in August. It was just a few days before colleges were going to open. So I thought I was going to Morgan State College in Baltimore, but they had notified me they didn't have any rooms on campus. So a friend of mine was already going to Johnson C. Smith, said, come on, let's go down and talk to the president at Smith. So we went down and talked with Dr. Liston. He said, a good thing you didn't go to the dean because he is not accepting any more students. So, but you just got out of service and you want to go to school this semester, and we're going to get you in school. So, because I took my transcript with me when I went down there, he got me in school, and I was very happy because I went to the best university in the world, Johnson C. Smith. Little did I know that when I graduated, Dr. Liston said to me that day, he says, Maynard, I really feel that you're going to do all right in life, because I have noticed that whenever good things were happening on this campus, you were there. And that, along with my experience in the Navy, made me very conscious how that people observe you. And so I always want to be a part of things that were going on. And that made me even more so. So when I came, when I finished school, I decided that when I went to Johnson C. Smith that I wanted to teach. And I think my naval experience, I think my experience at Johnson C. Smith and having a chance to work on the student government there at Smith and other opportunities that I had, coming from a background of the service, I think it all helped me to get a solid foundation for life. I learned very early that it's so important that you get people to cooperate, that you work with people in such a way that they hear what you're saying and that they listen to what you're saying and willing to put forth some effort to try, if it's suggestions that you make, that they try to see if these suggestions will work or if they will not work. They'd be willing to let you try in some instances. Little did I know, this was also preparing me for doing something that I did for 28 years, and that was to work in the city, to work on the city council in Burlington. And I went on the council with the idea that you're there to serve the people. You cannot serve the people if you don't listen to the people. And in listening to the people, you try to get an understanding as to what seems to be the best. You really have to develop some statesmanship because of what you get from the people and because what you have experienced. You try to come up with what is the best thing in the world for the community at this particular time. That's what I have tried to, that's the way I have tried to conduct myself. Little did I know after 28 years that they would come back and decide that they could find some way that I might be used again on the city council. So here I am now again, ready to offer my services, and I have a large ear.
Dave, let me say here how much I appreciate so many of the things that you have done. As you know, I have known you many years. We've had some great times.
Yes.
And as I told you when you got out of the car, some of the real joys of my life, those times when I went over to play with your basketball teams, play against your basketball teams, scrimmage those guys, and did we ever have fun together?
Well, I know it's meant a lot to them, and they talk about, some of them talk about them. Could you ever see those people who, when I point them out to, mention it to you, they said, sure. I said, yes. I said, do you know, one of them went on to be principal in the school system. Another one went on to be a city manager in Graham. Because you came over with
a lot of the guys from Graham and a lot of the coaches and some of the basketball players.
Right. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, had some great times.
So it's just been wonderful, and I have lived just to live long enough to see that have the people to bring their children and tell me what they said and to what they got out of it. Or the contact that we had. It's just me. As I always tell people, I'm the richest man in Burleson. I've been blessed. So
we all have been blessed, and you certainly have been a real force in this community. And I'll just close this thing out by simply saying thank you for the service you rendered, not only to our country, U.S. of A., and your time in the Navy, but also to the country that we're living right here, which is local, Alamance County and Burleson City, and so many areas that you have covered and been involved in. So I thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate what you and your wife have done, and you're still doing. And that's another thing too, you know, to think that sometimes people will say, well, I'm just through, we'll let somebody else do it. But you and your wife has continued to go right on. And that means so much because, you know, the broad experience that you've had is just, you can't help from be putting back into the community. And thank you very much.